Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today on Black Nerds Matter, we're thrilled to introduce and welcome Chanté Davis, an inspiring leader, storyteller, and advocate for ocean conservation and equity. Chanté is currently an undergrad at Duke University. Ooh, go Dukies! Studying marine science and conservation with a minor in journalism, arts, and media. She's doing a lot. She's passionate about shark conservation, making ocean spaces more equitable and accessible for BIPOC youth. At just 17 years old, Chanté made waves by organizing a 400-mile Gulf South climate march from New Orleans to Houston, sparking conversations about climate justice. Her powerful voice has since been featured in publications like Teen Vogue and Wake, and she starred in documentaries including To the End and Changemakers alongside Ted Danson. I've seen him on what's that one show? Larry David show.
Because
I've seen him before
that's
on
a
that.
yeah,
Shantae's leadership shines through her involvement at Duke, where she serves as first vice president of the National Pan-Hellenic Council and vice president of the Kaya Afro Collective magazine. If I messed any of those up, make sure to correct me. In
you're
today's
good.
interview, we'll explore her journey, her passions for sharks, and how she draws parallels between the negative portrayal of sharks and Black women in media. Ooh, I'm just really excited for that. We'll also discuss the importance of equity in marine science spaces and how Chanté is helping to create a brighter future for conservation. Let's dive right in.
Hi everyone, my name is Chanté Davis, and yeah, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, I'm hoping the introduction was to your liking. You had a lot going on. I saw all the things, looking you up and all that, and I was like, wow, to have that much on the internet about you from being 17, that's really cool. I think the most you can find of me back then is maybe like my records or something in track and field, or some type of of finish in some place from high school. But that's about it. That's awesome that you had that much impact already at such a young age.
Yeah, it's been something that I'm still kind of grappling with. I still don't know all of the effects of it, if that makes sense. So yeah, we'll see as I get into more spaces, I guess.
Yeah, I'm talking about your age. Like I'm 40 years older than you. I'm like a couple years older than you, but it's just cool to see someone having that kind of experience, especially with ocean stuff and climate stuff early
Hmm.
on. Because growing up where I grew up, we didn't have any environmental stuff like that. To
Yeah,
take that point and do that yourself is really awesome and admirable. I want to let you know that before we got into anything else.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So yeah, we were talking about the parallels between Black women and sharks and conservation. I really want to start off with that and hear what you have to say about that because that's something I thought was super interesting reading up on you.
Yeah,
I want to hear about that first. We can get into your life and all that later, but I want to get into this first. I'm really excited.
yes. Oh my God, I'm so excited to talk about this. Like, I try to talk to anyone I can about this, but I actually wrote my personal statement to get into Duke about this. And so basically, I was kind of talking about how, if you think about how the media portrays sharks, there's like these stereotypes and these tropes. Like, they're looking for the thing that's going to get you the most clicks, especially if you're thinking about like Shark Week, which a lot of marine scientists currently, especially in this program I'm part of, Minorities in Shark Science, have been kind of like gunning against Shark Week because of how negative it has actually been to shark conservation and shark science. And so they're, like I said, they're looking for the most clicks. So they're talking about shark bites. They're talking about how sharks are these like untamed, powerful forces that man has to conquer. Like that's kind of like the narrative there. And so I've been thinking about like sharks and like my experience in shark science. I was like, wow, like I started thinking, I was like, sharks are kind of like me because if I get angry, all of a sudden I'm an angry black woman. That's just only like outlook, and it's like all these like negative things. There's like no nuance there. And like just like sharks, we've been talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and like black women are like one of the most educated populations, demographics in the United States. And so obviously we're an essential part of the workforce in all these different spaces. And so sharks are the same way. They are a vital part of the environment. And so they're basically keeping these checks and balances. Like if you go on a reef and you don't see sharks, or like if you're in an area where there are supposed to be sharks and there are no sharks, like that's an issue. They're helping strengthen like the genetic diversity and like fish populations, like they're getting rid of like sick or like weaker species, and so like they're building like the genetic variability of these populations. You're not really thinking about that on the surface level if you're just only engaging with jazz type media, and so like that's kind of what I was getting at.
Okay, no, that's awesome. I mean, I'd never that parallel is so powerful to me in a sense because it's very misunderstood and people that love them really love them, but people that don't like them, you can really tell. And it's like the same
Mhm.
with black women or whatever. Like if anyone has something negative to say, that's usually very negative or, about either or. So it's very
Mhm.
interesting parallel that you brought there. So what was the thing that got you into looking at sharks? And was that something before Duke or something you really got into after Duke? Let me know.
So it was definitely before Duke. I will flat out say I have not always been a shark person. I came into marine biology like most people, cetaceans, things like dolphins, killer whales, free whaling, things like that. And for a while I got into echinoderms, so I was like into like sea stars and stuff. And then what really sparked me to like go to sharks was I went to Texas State Aquarium one time and they had a touch tank. But the touch tank had Appalachian sharks and I was like, because I used to, just like sea stars, some hermit crabs, like sharks. So like I was coming in with my own like misconception about sharks. I was like, man, sharks in the touch tank, like and all these
Yeah.
kids are there, like kind of bite off a finger or something. Like this is an insurance issue. Like, so I'm sitting there like as I'm like actually, getting down personal and like touching the shark. The woman who was working that day like kind of like talks about all these things about how sharks are to the ecosystem and then talks about like epaulet sharks saying like, bottom feeders. Like, I didn't even know these tiny like small sharks existed because they only ever show you like the great whites, the hammerhead. So I was like, it really made me like kind of do more research about sharks, like how many different species there are. Like there's like I think over like 500 species and like more are still being discovered. And then just doing more research on like the issues that they face, like finning, overfishing, all the things, ocean acidification, ocean warming, all of the things. And yeah, like it really opened up another world for me. And so from there, I just like started getting more and more into sharks. And luckily for me, growing up in this era, there were things like BIMS, Black and Marine Science, and MIST, minorities and shark science. And I was like, there are people that look like me that are doing this, and like it really kind of like solidified.
Okay, so you spoke of where you grew up at. Where are you from? I mean, I hear your accent.
Yeah,
It sounds very southern, and I'm from Texas, so I have family and friends that sound like that. So which part are you from? Virginia? Like where are you from?
from New Orleans, but I live
Okay.
in Houston, so I have like a meld of both of the two.
Okay, I knew so Texas was in there. I was like, okay, okay,
Mhm.
okay, I can understand now.
Yes, which I'll actually definitely talk more about as we get into the weeds of some things I did. It's in my past, yes. But basically, yeah, we're from New Orleans. I'm actually seventh generation, which is a really big thing. I remember we talked with a scholar here at Duke who was an indigenous scholar, and they were talking about the seven generations, like the seven generation. And so when they do environmental work, they're thinking about like, will this be good? Will this environment, will this be good for the next seven generations? Like, that's how far ahead they think. And so, like, that's really been like a centering thing for me in my work because I'm like, wow, I'm seventh generation and I kind of get to go back home, but I also got uprooted from Hurricane Katrina, which
Okay.
is like really like the opening of the climate crisis to the American public, if you really think about it. But yeah, I like try to think have that thinking like I still get to sort of kind of admire it, when I go back. But like I'm trying to think seven generations like for the next person that is me essentially to be able to grow up and experience the land.
So pardon my ignorance, but what is the seventh generation, and could you explain that?
Yeah, so the seventh generation is something that that person and like their tribe have like kind of talked about, and so when they're like practicing sovereignty and like taking care of the land, they're essentially trying to think, will this still be in the same condition, if not better, yeah, for the next seven generations. So it's like thinking of like how we take care of like resources and can they be handed down, through like a family's like generational lifespan.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I never heard of that before. Okay, you got a lot to tell us today. I'm really excited. There's even more. I'm already learning so much already. So, how has your family supported you through your journey and being a scientist and all of that? You know as well as I do, it's not a big thing in the Black community. Like when you have a lot of
Yeah.
your friends or cousins or whatever, you ask them what they want to
Mhm.
do, it might be, I don't know, like farmer or basketball player,
Yeah.
like either like community stuff or something
Hmm.
really, really up there. It's like entertainment based, but you hardly ever hear scientists. And I'm one of the first few of that in my family. So I'm wondering what your experience like that is, telling your parents what you do, telling your family, and how that affected your life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I come from a family of educators, essentially, and then like some creative arts here and there. But basically, when I said I wanted to go into science, like I always did into science. So like at first I said I wanted to be like a zoologist, and I was like archaeologist, and I was like paleontologist. I was like all over excited. But they don't always support it. I will say that much. Like, and so when I said marine biology, and I like really kind of stuck with it. I remember my sister. She literally went online and was like looking up like opportunities for like me to get involved in. So she found this program called Ocean Heroes Bootcamp, which I signed up for. I got a scholarship from them. I got to meet Dan Washington, who was like the first African American TV host. American. Oh wait, let me re-say that. African American woman science, American science TV host. There we go.
Yep.
So I got
Yeah.
to meet her. She became my mentor, and then that definitely pleased my parents. They were like, "Oh my God, there are black people out here doing this," and like they just like absolutely loved her energy and like how she was like opening my world to all these other opportunities. And so that kind of like really solidified. They were like, "Well, whatever you want to do, like just let us know. Like we'll support you." So I will say I'm very supportive on that. And in terms of like climate activism, on the other hand, though, you would think like until I started like building my repertoire and like understanding like the climate crisis and how it had affected my family and was still affecting my family, and I was able to tell them that they were like, "Why are you getting involved in this like white man's cause?" Because you know, right now, especially post 2020, like we've talked about the importance of having black and brown leaders in the climate and environmental movement. But before that, it was just like essentially these white tree huggers, and so like
Yeah. Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
abstract things, just doing stuff to do stuff. And so,
The white girls with dreads and stuff.
yes, exactly. And so you're like, with Becky and them, like, what is going on? And then once I started explaining to them, like I said, building my repertoire and like actually breaking it down for them, like, oh, and like, which is actually a very noble thing. And so, like, the support started to build there as well.
That's wonderful. One of the things you touched on earlier, you were talking about Katrina and being affected of that. If you'd like to talk about that, I'd love to hear because for me, I had heard about it. I was living in Pennsylvania at the time. I was very young. I was like 5 or 6. And so like that happened. We heard about it on TV. I saw maybe a thing or two on TV, but I never knew what the experience was like for someone who
Mhm.
actually was there during that time. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I was very young actually. I was about like 2 years old when Katrina hit, and my mom told me that we left like literally the day before because we were going to stay, but then like my grandma who was still living at the time was like, "No, like I have a feeling that we should get out of here." And so like we literally left the day before. And that still sends chills down my neck because like we have community members and family members like who stayed, and so it's really like a heavy thing. If you ask anyone to say about their Katrina story, they can surely tell you it ranges from, either having been there, having to wade through the waters, or like even folks who, I don't know if you probably didn't know about this, but there was like a bus crisis where people were just getting bussed out like to anywhere, getting swept from their families. Like I have
Wow.
a friend, yeah, I have a dear friend right now in New Orleans. He's a punk musician, and actually happened to him and his family. So like it's so many different layers to that. And then if you talk about the response afterwards, we can get to that. But personally for me, like that has been kind of like my center when it comes to environmental like movement because that was my first even though like I was, pretty small and I didn't like really grapple with the severity of the issue until later down the line. Like that was my first encounter with the climate crisis just so young. And like I said, we're going back to that seventh generation thing, like that just brings another degree of importance and significance to my experience. And so I would say that's one thing. And the second thing is like when we moved to Houston, like we were to this day, I still isolate. Like that's why I still call Northern home because I still my family there. We like recently sold our house in like 2015, and so like we still like very much have like connections and roots and family still there. So I still claim home, but I've always like just been sad that I can't really move back because I mean, there's still, we seen Ida that literally happened on the anniversary of Katrina. Like, these stuff just keeps repeating. So it's not really the most sustainable to live there. And I really hate that. So, yeah, I'll leave it there. If you have any other questions, I'm going to that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's like, you were saying that it was something that you had experienced even though you were very small. I'm like, I think that's very valid, especially considering that even though you didn't see all of it or remember all of it, it affected where you ended up living and where you were at later in life,
Mm-hmm.
and even your ability to go back somewhere that you were born, I'm assuming. And that's just very, I know that has to be a different experience. So thank you so much for sharing that. And like you talking about people being bussed out, like that makes me think about people who are being detained by ICE and, put away with their families, even like
Mm-hmm.
slavery in a sense where, you're being sent, split up in your family from place to place. I can't believe that that kind of stuff would happen in a disaster, because you would believe that during that you'd want to be with your family. They keep you with your family over everything because that's probably all you have at that time.
And oh my gosh, to speak to that point, because you just reminded me, like, another thing is like, I've been to, this will probably be like a core essential thing, but the power of storytelling. And so, like, my family would tell me, because I was asking a lot about home, because, yeah, I was broke. Like, they would be like, your world is your home. We're just, because, like, I used to be in Houston just to get back on my feet. And then eventually it was like, it makes no reason to go, like, it makes no sense to go back. So we just kind of stayed in Houston. But yeah, my family would tell me stories of like how like a lot of people in New Orleans, like, they'll grow up there and they won't really leave. Like, they're very connected to the culture, the land, and like our family eventually, like, the way it was set up, our family, like many other families in our community, like, we had a block basically, and so like our family like all lived on the block, and like now like my family's all over the country because of Katrina. There are folks who, some folks who live in Baton Rouge, some folks up in Ohio, I have some folks in Texas. Like, I have just people like all over, and so like it really like uprooted us. And I think that's another thing that people, I guess, is an unspoken story of like how like this like really uprooted people and like kind of like physically, geographically divided people's communities.
Okay. I just can't imagine the things that people have to go through during that time. So I thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad that you're being strong, even all these years later, dealing with it and handling it, because that's something that's difficult. I mean, no one can say that that'd be easy for anyone to handle, especially when you have to move that much and those different things like that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, so I wanted to switch gears a bit. I'm gonna ask you a whole lot about career stuff, and I know we're gonna get into a lot of that, but I want to know more about you and the kind of things that you enjoy doing. Look, Black Nerds Matter. My favorite thing to ask people is what makes them a nerd. What are your kind of hobbies? What kind of things do you love to do? So I know you're a water person. I know you've been at Duke. All these things. What are your kind of hobbies, and what makes Shantae a nerd?
Creative nerd. I really love to do like spoken word. I really got into spoken word for 2020. And I do like creative writing, poetry. One thing that we used to do during the pandemic, me and my like movement friends would have like slam nights and stuff. Like, just like talk. It's not funny, but we would talk about like the political and economic state of the world and things of that nature. But like in a satire sense, it was very fun. So I really do love to do that. And then in the other creative spectrum, I do like to dance and I do step. Um, so those are like some of my like more creative outlets. And then I guess in like the nature sense, I like, hiking. I like to just do things like go out and use like naturalist ID and like identify different things, where it's like birds, fish, insects, different types of things. So that's a bit of my like more nerdy side.
Oh my God, not iNaturalist. I used to have to use that for class at school, and I don't even want to see that thing, not even for fun. Like, no.
No, look, I had mad respect for our naturalists when I did a fellowship in Mozambique because I we didn't get to use it. We had huge books and it was so hard. It was so, oh my god, yeah. Anyway, those are very minuscule, but yeah.
Yeah, can I use my resources that I have spent money on that I've been using the entire time? Do I really have to do it the old-fashioned way and use pen and paper? Can I just type it?
I swear. No, yeah.
Okay, so we touched a bit about on your 400-mile Gulf South climate march. Can you tell me what inspired you to create this, and how was the process of setting that up and doing it? I mean, I don't think I could have led anything at 17. I could barely tell my like lead a team in basketball at 17. So how are you leading a whole march of people? I want to know how you possibly got that together. That's awesome.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess I'll start square one. So I have been a part of the movement since I was 16, and I had done a whole bunch of like different things. Like I had, made some signs, spoke at some rallies, and I had done some political organizing, which was like kind of like my my entrance into like the media because like I was getting like these interviews like, oh my God, you're 16 and you're being elected to organizing in Texas. I was like, green, like we were green Congress members, and so I had kind of like shifted. So the way that the Sunrise Movement, which is the movement that organization that I was organizing with, is kind of set up is that we had well, back in the day, because I can't speak for right now, but back in the day we had national, so like the national outward facing movement, and then the like actual boots on the ground of the movement were these local hubs, which were kind of like chapters. And so I was a part of the Sunrise Houston hub, and we I kind of like meandered between doing local work, but then also speaking for the national movement. And so I was kind of like in the center that like not a lot of people were in. And so people would like look to me to like talk about the movement, but then also like, I would use that stage time to like, shine light on like local things. So I already kind of had like this like notoriety, I guess you could say. So then when we get closer to me being 17, the Texas freeze happens, which I'm actually in town for. And my family's affected, a whole bunch of my friends are affected, like everyone across the state of Texas is affected. And so
What year was
we
that?
organized, that was 2021, I believe. Yeah,
Okay,
that was
okay. I was
2021.
in college then. I was like, I don't remember being there for that, but I think my parents
Mhm.
were there. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yes. So that's 2021. And so we organized like all of the Texas hubs as like a rally at the Capitol in Austin. We're like, calling out our representatives saying, y'all left us behind and like something like, this shouldn't happen again. And we were talking about how there was being this like misconstrued narrative that it was somehow the renewable energy's fault, which actually, just to go plug this really quickly, but like about 2 weeks ago, Texas actually got snow, and this time there was no Texas freeze crisis. And guess why? Because the state invested more in renewable energy. I just had to plug that. But anyway, shameless plug. Anyway, so after that action, like we saw all these hubs who normally like we were siloed cities, we saw us stand together. And we were like, wow, this is like really powerful for all of us to stand together. It's like, Texans and like, fight for this cause. And so we were like, that summer was coming up. And so in the background, these conversations are happening about, Biden just got elected. We need to make sure he's ran on all this stuff about environmental justice, climate justice, all this stuff. We need to make sure he puts his money, where his money is. And so at the time, the Build Back Better Act was on the floor, which is not an IRA, by the way. So the Build Back Better Act was on the floor. I gotta get into all my legislative talk and stuff. The Build Back Better Act was on the floor, and within that packet of like legislative bills was the CCC, the Civilian Climate Corps, which is the American Climate Corps. He just changed the civilian. But anyway, that we're like, he needs to pass that. If he does not pass anything else that has to do with the Green New Deal, he needs to pass that. And so we were like, how are we going to get him to pass that? And so, taking what we have just done in Texas, we're supposed to be, anti-environment, pro-oil and gas. We were like, wow, we were like, a
Hmm.
lot of ways doing that. We were like, we need to do something. And so someone had called the idea of a march. And at first, I was like, we're trying to call out the civil rights movement. I'm not down with that. But then I actually started to sit back and like kind of like, marinate in it. And I was like, what if we did like in a way that was not, that kind of like was symbolic as that march, but like didn't like co-opt it. And so I was like, and so I thought about it. I was like, my family like had to, technically march, not literally, but had to march from New Orleans to Houston from Katrina, which, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, was one of the first, like America's grand opening, I guess, to the climate crisis. And I was like, that was a significant climate event. Like, we can connect to that. And so I started talking with folks and we kind of fleshed it out a bit more. And they were like, what if we use like your family's journey, which was like the journey for so many other people, wherever they went, and a lot of them did go to Houston because we found community in New Orleans and Houston. we use that as kind of like this device to, spur support for this cause, but like make it like very like realistic and like to people and like uplift this community, this coast, the Gulf Coast. And so to a bit more, and then I like pitched it to people like with this reason behind it, and people surprisingly were like, yeah, and they were like, you know what? Yeah. And so like, yeah, it was, and like I said, the summer was coming up, so like students, like we didn't really have to worry much about school. I'm gonna get back into that because I did very much have to worry about school. But some people got out earlier than others, so they didn't have to worry about school. And then we had like older folks who were like, the summarizing we had at the time was like booming. So like we had like the funds to like cover people to like take off for their jobs for the 40 days that we did walk. So that like really came
How
together.
many days? How many days were
40
you
days.
walking?
40 days.
Dude, I bet your calves are huge. Like you have like the strongest legs from doing
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah,
40
yeah.
days?
Oh my god, yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like a severe like cardio queen because every time I cruise, I was like, we can work here, trust me. I'm across state lines, like,
Yeah, and it's 20 miles away. You talk about some walking. They like, no, girl, we need an Uber.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is too far. This is too far.
So we built, so once we got a lot more people on board, I started talking, myself and some other organizers started talking with our connects because at that point I had been around the movement. Like I said, I was kind of meandering in the middle between national and local, and so I got to meet people from all over the country as opposed to just doing solo work in Houston. I know people in New
Mhm.
Orleans, I know people in Austin, I know people in Dallas, and so these were like the bulk of the people who actually joined us and check or either like supported us like remotely. And so that was very amazing. Just seeing like that cross state organization like that, yeah, it was truly amazing. And so we got to do that. And then we reached out to like partner organizations. So we thought about, and we like also, so basically we built the right. And we were like, how can we go in a way that like, we get from New Orleans to Houston, but like it's relevant to the climate movement. So we were like, we definitely need to, hit Cancer Alley, like talk to these communities. So we knew some people in Rise St. James and the Descendants Project, which we ended up doing work with. We talked to this mutual aid organization called Fighting Food For Us, and they help like, get food, national grant food to folks with food insecurity. So we talked to them. Then we like thought about like going to Texas, and so this kind of came later down the line because originally we were going to talk to some like some green energy infrastructure folks during the time like when we got closer to Houston. It was aligned perfectly. It was divine intervention, I swear. And so when we were getting closer and closer to like crossing the Louisiana Texas border, the Exxon Mobil workers at the Port Arthur plant were actually just got locked up and they're trying to unionize. And so we actually got in touch with them and we got to like actually go out and picket with them. And so like everything like really organized. But we were just thinking about like what are some places we actually need to highlight and like, what are some like other organizations, maybe smaller grassroots organizations that we need to like uplift and like, allow people to, hear their stories with using our big platform. And so yeah, that's like pretty much how everything came together.
I have so many questions, so many. So I'll just do three. First of all, did they have water cups for you guys at the end?
Yes.
Second,
Baby, we had electrolytes and they had a big pink like almost gallon full of we used to stay hydrated.
okay, when did you guys sleep?
We slept. Okay. So what we did was like we set a number of miles to walk every day. So and we built because like none of us were like severe walkers. Like we weren't like doing triathlons and stuff. Like we were just
Nobody was an Olympic walker, is what you're saying?
no. So we did a thing where like I think we the first day we did 5 miles and then like we like slowly built up to where we were doing I think it was like 20 miles a day. And
Ooh,
so yeah. And so we did, we paced ourselves essentially. We paced ourselves. We
I'm
didn't just
glad.
jump into it. We were like, we gotta make sure like we were like health and safety is a priority. Like I sprained my ankle during one point. I had to like sit out for a week. Like it was Yeah, like we were really in the weeds of it. But
So how'd you catch up? Did you like drive to catch everybody still walking?
yeah, I had to go to take, yeah, they were like, right, do not walk it. Like, it's, don't actually, they were like, we don't need you in the hospital. So, yeah, that was very,
I would have walked the
oh,
whole march. This is
you
my
know,
march. I don't walk the whole thing.
yes, they were like, girl, no, they were like, you need to rest. So, yeah, I took like a week off, at one point, but yeah, yeah, we slept, basically at different stops, like at like different houses along the way. So we didn't like camp on the side of the road, but I was like also say like, so we did,
Okay,
yeah,
I was wondering. I knew you didn't do nothing crazy, but I just want to know what actually happened because I'm thinking
no,
like
that's real.
I'm loving the whole environmental activism and all the higher level stuff, but I'm thinking of like the basic stuff. Okay, where they eat, where they sleep, like what do we
Yeah,
guys do? Because I'm like, how is this possible to organize something like this? That's what I'm
yeah,
thinking.
yeah.
Lodging
I
for all
will
these
say
people, that's a lot of stuff you have to think about ahead of time, as I'm sure you know.
this. Yes, I like really didn't like. Cause like I mean, when I'm pitching the idea, first of all, I really didn't think people were gonna. So I was like, you know, I'm like, hey, it's a waste of time, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And then yeah, so saying, yeah, I was like, oh, we could like actually start putting this to the scene. Like, I will say the good thing about like working with like such a big organization like at the time, like the Song Rights Program, is that they were, you know, we had people on the back end, especially on the national end, like they were like, this would like make national headlines. It's like they were thinking about these things. I'm not sure whether it was like, okay, I don't know. It's like, okay, we're gonna have like a little tent, we're gonna sleep right there, and then we're gonna wake up, you know, eat good stuff, and we're gonna sing or whatever, and then
yeah.
we're gonna keep like,
That's what I
yeah, like
thought. Yeah,
yeah, no, no,
I
no,
thought y'all
yeah.
was like hoboing and like walking
Yeah,
around, and
so
then
we all gonna do, but they were
yeah,
like, this is a safety, this is a concern thing. You know, we have like, you know, big donors, and they might take money out for this. And like, y'all dated these young people, so they were like, no, we have like houses set up for you. So yeah, yeah, we were able to actually like have a decent place to stay and like make sure that we had things to eat and stuff. I actually went vegan this summer because a lot of people that watched me were vegan, so I went vegan this summer. That was a bit of an experience.
I bet it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, I'm no longer vegan. Yeah, just to get that out there. But it was a nice time, it was a beautiful experience. But yeah, we did indeed have a place to sleep, eat, and all that stuff.
You guys were like nomads, or that like that's. I mean, I think that's awesome. I mean, I've heard somebody say nomad. They'll say nomads. They'll say like professional homeless, but I'm like, that's not the same thing. Like that. Like this is. I'm glad that you guys were able to do that and actually, and I'm sure that was a great experience just to feel supported, but also going in all these different places, like having being able to travel and doing that, having people with you, experiencing all that. Like that's awesome. I can't imagine what that was like. I'm glad you got that experience.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was truly a one of a kind experience. I often think about it a lot. Like, especially when I'm in a pickle, I'm just like, yeah, this ain't nothing compared to, because that's another thing. We watch sun, shine, sleet, snow,
Snow.
rain. No, no snow. There was no snow. It was
Okay.
like,
I was gonna
it
say.
was major. There was absolutely no snow. It's like, but that rain, if you know how it rains in the South, we don't, I like to call it like up here in North Carolina, I like to call it really fucking rain. Every now and then we'll get real rain, but I'm talking about real thunderstorms, like straight
Yeah.
flooded rain. Like yeah,
When
one
when it
time
rains, it pours kind of rain.
yes, when it
Yeah.
rains, it pours. Exactly. Exactly.
So what's the biggest thing you've learned from that experience? I'm sure there's a lot of things about resiliency, climate change, and how
Yeah.
powerful people can be. But what's your biggest takeaway from that experience, if you could give one?
Oh, my biggest takeaway. No, why did you do that to me? Oh my God.
That was gonna be easy. Come on, I need some real
No,
answers. I don't want
so,
any corporate answers.
yeah, so much. I don't even know how to fit into one. Like, I guess the biggest takeaway, personally speaking, I'll be personal and then I'll be community. So,
Okay.
personally speaking, is just like how much agency I have, how much power I really have. Because, like I said, I just told my this idea, and all of a sudden, these people are getting behind my cause. I was just like, oh, like, we really doing this. Okay, I gotta, like, yeah, I gotta get my feet and feel straight. And also, like, my ability to juggle so many things. So, like I mentioned about the school part, I very much was out of high school. I still had AP exams. I still had regular end of year exams. I still had to do those. I had to talk to my administrator and tell them what I was doing, get them in the week, like, create a little agreement us to, we created a whole agreement for me to be able to, essentially do what I did and like still deliver at school. So like that really like that really showed me the importance of time management and like what self determination can do. And then on the community level, back to like that theme of resilience, just thinking about how resilient we are and like really seeing the difference between the climate movement and the climate justice movement. Because a lot of people that we were doing were doing climate justice work. And like looking at how everything is interconnected. So like when we were working with Rise St. James and the Descendants Project, especially the Descendants Project, their whole spiel was like they were protesting against this grain elevator that was going to like pollute the air with like particulate matter. And basically the land that those developers were trying to use was like that family's direct like descendants, like slave descendants, because essentially on Kings Alley, like that was like plantation, those were all plantations, and then the plantation owners gave the rights of that land to the oil and gas companies. And so you kind of see this like being perpetuated. So like that was something that I never had really thought about. And so I started thinking of like climate justice as like racial justice. And then to go back to the union workers at Exxon, the media tries to paint like climate activists as against, oil and gas workers, or they're going to come, take you off your jobs, you're not going to have any economic security. And then we're talking to them during, picketing, and they were like, we're talking about the civilian climate card. We're like, oh, what if, because Paul Eichler gets a lot of storms. We're like, what if, you get a storm and you get paid to like rebuild your town? We're like, that sounds cool. Like, we just didn't use like, all of the like jargon and like the legislative terms. And so we found like these like aligning things that like I thought were really powerful. And then also like thinking about if we were to switch to a clean and green energy infrastructure, that would be better for these folks because we were talking to them, they're like, yeah, when I sign that contract, I'm essentially signing away a part of my life. And it was like, wow, I like never knew that. Like that is like unsafe as hell. And so really thinking about all these things together in like the most like personified sense was like really powerful.
Wow. So after doing something like that, what are your future goals and what you want to do with your career? I mean, there's still so many things that we're still going to get into later, even with the Teen Vogue and the documentaries and all of that. But you've seen the power you
Yeah,
have. You've seen how people are willing to rally behind some things that you're passionate in. What do you want to do with that going forward? I mean, past school, even during school.
yeah. During school, I've really been trying to harness the power of my voice. And like, yeah, because I mean, especially at a place like Duke, people are so hardcore in academics. I'm like, it's like there's real things happening in the world. So like, just really bringing them down to reality, and then also taking, I guess, I got to talk about another thing from the trip, but like we had people. So some of the youngest people there were me, and then my friend at Harvard, who is a Nepali American. We were both like still teenagers, and we had folks come with us who were in their late 30s, early 40s, and like just like doing that intergenerational work, and then also working alongside like people like my peers was like so powerful for me. So I went into thinking like not a lot of people when you think about networking and stuff, you're looking at upwards, you're not looking at horizontal. And so like I came into college like really thinking about like who like on my level, which one of my peers like could like I help or could help me, vice versa. Um, so that was like one thing that I like really thought about, I guess. And like career wise, like after college, I really want to do like community based research. I'm hoping that I can do like sharp research. So I wouldn't mind if it was anywhere in the realm of marine science policy wise or like organismal work. So yeah, I'm honestly down for anything. I just do know that I want it to be like community based, maybe like
So you want to do some kind of research in some sort of way, shape, or fashion, and have it affect and better some community in some way, shape, or fashion.
yes. If it could be back home, I would love that. Especially since we're starting to get sharks. If you didn't watch the Shark Fest feature with Anthony Mackie and Dr. Tierra Moore, that was just a holy trifecta for me. Like I was just like, wow. Not only are they in my city talking about sharks, and then there's these three powerful black people. Like it was chicken. But Yeah, definitely would love to do like some work there for sure.
That's that's awesome. That's geez, that's so much going in your favor, and I'm really happy that you've had that experience and seen that, and you can like envision a lot for yourself. Like, I mean, because after something like that, I feel like I could rule the world or whatever. You know what I mean? Because it's like that's getting a lot of stuff together for, and a lot of people having taking notice of it. So that's really cool. So something else I was wondering about is how was working with documentaries. I've seen that you've met with AOC on different things about policy. Can you talk about that? Even the different senators you've met? 'Cause I'm like, this is a lot of like Changemakers, Afro collective magazines. Kind of, I'm reading my notes, trying to get it all together. I want to make sure you get to touch on as many of these things as you feel comfortable talking about. So we can start from any point that
Yeah.
you're interested in.
Let me see. Let's see. I guess I'll talk about working with like and like the big leagues, working with like different congressmen. It really that was just another. That was actually before I did some like stuff like with AOC. That was like no, that was during the Texas freeze. But I did some work after the March of stuff I did when I was like doing electoral organizing, and so it really made me think about ways that I could like better my storytelling and my advocacy work because before I was doing when I was like meandering within the local movement and like, the national movement. One thing that I did that allowed me to meander was that I was helping people learn to tell their climate stories, and that was mostly just like to build morale amongst other people in the movement, but and then also to do like some base building, so to like get people who weren't in the movement but were maybe like in like the environmental space to like join the movement. And working with these like Congress people like allowed me to like learn how to like shift that and like talk to like like mass audiences and to like add another layer to like whatever legislature or whatever issue they were trying to talk about. And it really made me kind of like realize that like I was equipped to talk about things. Like I remember one time I got asked to be on the Twitch stream with Senator Ed Markey, and it was about like the SCOTUS, and it was about like term limits. I was like, not into law. Not nothing about this. Like, why are you asking my 16-year-old self to talk about why term limits are important? And then we were talking with the way that we transitioned into it was like talking about like the court and because this was when Trump was still in office. We were talking about how the courts were trying to dismantle EPA, which we see again, and like how term limits were important to that, and then like how that was ultimately important to like our cause, like in the climate movement. And so like it really made me like I'm not gonna say BS because it wasn't BS and like really like creatively think about how things are like interconnected and how you can like infuse storytelling to like add another layer and like get more people to listen to your message.
Okay. So what about working with Teen Vogue and Awake? How was working with those
Yes.
publications? I know you were talking about your creative interests and even your creative intuition, and the last thing you were talking about, you were talking about BSing. But how did you enjoy working with them, and how did that inspire you to do more storytelling or help you be better at it?
I'm basically doing writing, like I said, like that's one of my creative outlets. So to actually be able to write for like Teen Vogue with these like publications and get my like word across, my cause across, and then also like doing Drake, which is more I get more like poems and things of that nature, like prose narrative. And it's really fun, and I really liked working as a person Teen Vogue. I really liked working for Drake because I really got to speak more to my audience by point of view. And so I used these like poems and prose narrative to kind of open up the door for them to think about like the way they perceive the things happening around them. Like I had one poem where I was talking plastic pollution. It's called Breathe. I'm talking about first I go to like just talking about all the litter that you might see in like your community to like turn it back to like plastic production, like how this is an issue and like what we can do about it. And so like it was very powerful for me to just it's very powerful for me to just kind of like, yeah, use these like devices and these creative outlets as a tool to like, yeah, to do advocacy work. And then to also like to do something I enjoy.
Okay, that I think it's really cool. I'm writing a blog right now for like this show, right? I'm sending it to a publication about that so I can understand the creative writing process. It's fun. For some of my other things that I generate for my work or captions or whatever, I'll use like my own stuff and AI. But I find that with things like the blog, and like I get to write with just my own voice and make it fun, and no computer can, trying to think of the word, get that same thing out of it. So I can understand how you
Mm-hmm.
mean that the creative writing and you doing it yourself can be a lot of fun. When it comes to like some of my science stuff, it's like, yeah, I need computers to help me out because that stuff is not, I can't just be me. You know what I mean? It's got to be the right
Yes.
way.
Yes. Oh my God. Amen to that. Because, yeah, I recently did my research this past semester, and I was just like, this is a whole different world. Like, I gotta be so rigid. It's, yeah, I don't know. People have papers, so, more power to them.
Yeah, you got to have the language be perfect and good for the
Mm-hmm.
reviewers and all this stuff. It's like, I want to sound like me, not a robot. It's like, well, I'm going to get a robot's help
Exactly.
so that I can do this the
Mm-hmm.
way you want it to be done.
Right. No facts.
So what can you talk about documentaries like To the End and Changemakers, and how has your work in media amplified your voice and message as a marine science advocate?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Media has also helped in like my self confidence and like agency because yeah, I went from, just doing my work alone, and then like media came, and I'm like, wow, I have like a platform to actually like raise awareness on these issues. And so To the End was very special because it featured part of the march in the storyline. And so it's just very cool for me to have that to like look back on and be like, wow, I really did that. Like I actually have, because like, we have like all these like other historical marches, but we don't have like an actual video account. And so like it's really cool to have that because then I can use that like to kind of center myself whenever I feel like have like less agency in a situation and things. I'm like, oh, I really did that. Like, there's like physical proof. Um, and then that storyline, like the March, like I said, was a part of this like smaller storyline. But like it's like To the End, it's like talking about all these like leaders. So it's talking about like AOC, one of our past executive director, Rashida Prakash, and then a couple of other big women who are doing big things, either like political spectrum or like in the climate movement. And so kind of like thinking like that my cars got to like make it into that is like so big, and it just like shows like all of the power of our collective work. So I think that's really powerful. In terms of Changemakers, when I was first started Ted Danson, like I don't know, especially in terms of ocean conservation, because a lot of my stuff had been like broad climate movement stuff, but I got to actually sit down and like bring a youth voice to talk about the issue of overfishing, which is definitely like less, especially in the global actually break it down for like the everyday person to understand what was at stake, and then to also push and advocate for people to get involved and to like call their representatives to get this WTO agreement signed to end subsidies. So it's really cool.
Man, that's you on TV. Don't you feel like a movie star sometimes? You just feel like
Jeez,
your family, like, oh my gosh, she's famous. She's famous. She's done all this stuff.
please, my mom, every chance she gets, she's just like, I'm just like, oh my god, please, like, how are you? Like, this person doesn't even know who I am. You're just planning to watch this stuff I'm part of. It's so funny. I still haven't like I don't know. I still haven't grappled with that either. Like I just vibe. I'm just here.
So do you ever have people that recognize you from it or call you from these things and like be like, oh, you're that person I saw here, that person I saw here. Like how
Yes.
often does that
Oh
kind
my
of stuff
gosh.
happen?
Yes. I actually just what was that, last week or 2 weeks ago? I just did a speech, like a seminar for the University of British Columbia to talk about change makers because a bunch of students um, requested that they talk to me to like hear about my work, and I was like, oh, just like I don't know, I see some really cool people like on other like documentaries and like things I watch. I've never like actually like had the gusto to like be like, can I meet this person? Like, so I just thought that was really cool for me to be accessible and to like be able to share my story with these folks and like, for hopefully for them to see themselves in me because I'm just a regular person.
You definitely got that. I don't know. You got like that southern charm when it comes to that. Like we're just regular people. We're like I meet a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
from like even some of my family and people from Texas and stuff like that. We're just I'm just a little person. I'm like you're the coolest person ever. You're doing all this awesome stuff. I'm just here just trying to do my best. And I'm like, yeah, you're doing.
No, for real.
I think you're doing way more than your best. You're doing exceptional. So it's awesome to hear that from you.
Yes. No, yeah. Yeah, because I definitely think about that in the crime movement a lot, especially in thinking about like the rise of like, you know, it puts people on the pedestal. And that's been something I've really been trying to, especially in thinking about my like how I interact with media and use media. Like I always try to make sure like it's not really centered around my head. Like I'm just the person telling the story. I'm not the story. I'm not the person that you're trying to be like. You can join this club. So I always try to make sure I make that known for sure.
You're like a news anchor.
Yes,
You're reporting it. Yeah.
news.
Okay.
Delivering the news.
But then when they put the camera on you, you're like, this is this camera on me? Like, no, I don't want. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about your involvement with organizations like AKA, sorority, and Kaya Afro Collective magazine. Have you integrated those passions? Have you integrated your passions into those societies and helped them with what they're doing?
Yeah. I would say in terms of my sorority, so we have a program initiative in like Target that's called Enhance Our Environment. And so like on the like literal sense, like when we're programming, I usually like always like push for like environmental stuff and for like environmental awareness for us to teach the broader community and then like service based things as well. So like planting trees, cleanups, all the good things. And then on the other end, in like the non-literal sense, because I have like an increased sense of like notoriety because I'm a part of this great organization, I'll use that. Like people will gravitate toward me, whether it's like to learn about my organization or not. But I'll use that as a point which I like get them involved in my cause and just be like, hey, like talking about the state of the world and like climate justice movement, how they can get involved in things of that nature. So I do like that. Like I have that now because yeah, I don't know, especially like PWI and like tapping into the black community, like grandmothers, like people, you become more visible. I will say, so like that's been like a blessing for real.
That's awesome. I'm so glad. That's so cool, bro. That's so cool. So how has your experience been at Duke? I mean, me and you talked about it a little bit just because I spent some time there as well. And I also want to talk about barriers you've seen for people that look like us, like Black people in
Mm-hmm.
science. So if you could talk to both of
Yes.
those
Oh
points, that
my
would be awesome.
God. Okay. So first and foremost, I do love Duke. We have a very close community, and like Duke is they just love Sean, and so they're like really easy to get them to rally behind the cause as long as you can show them what they're getting, which is like helped in some of the sense of which has helped in some of the projects I've done, especially like with Afro Collective magazine. Like right now, we're trying to showcase, we're trying to do a zine that's like showcasing Black trailblazers, specifically I do. And so like
Hmm.
Duke has like shown their support behind it, which has been really amazing. In terms of like challenges, STEM Black, especially Black folks in STEM, we are one of the few people that look like us in these spaces. I recently did an independent research project at the Duke Marine Lab, which is different from Big Duke. You're in Beaufort, you're kind of like in the secluded area. It was like maybe like 20 people on the island.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, in the fall. And so I didn't have the most supportive like research advisor, and then my environment itself. I was able to find allies here and there, but like, the general environment wasn't very supportive. And so one of the things I like really had to like learn was like and like tap into was like my pre-built network and like my community outside of that space. And like I also said, finding allies here and there who were actually on the island who could help me. And so yeah, being a part of like BIMS like really helped because I was able to talk to folks and just like bond over like challenges that I faced like there, and then also being a part of this, I was able to tap into some folks who have done like scientific writing for them to like look over my stuff because like my research advisor this they didn't want to, which is unfortunate. And then also like even at Big Duke, I had some like folks, some like Black professors like from the English department that I got to like look over my stuff and like make sure it's like grammatically correct and stuff. So it was very important for me to like tap into my network and like just like really admire the power of like community.
Okay, what are some specific challenges you see? I know you talked about not having your advisor want to look over your stuff, but what are some other ones that you've had at Duke, and how
Yeah,
did you overcome them? I know plenty of people would love to hear how they can apply those to their own situations because school's hard.
yeah, yes. Oh my gosh. I would say when I was at the Marine Lab, another thing was like my classmates, like they, to be frank, they just weren't my cup of tea. And so being a part of my sorority was very, that was one thing that I kind of like really did because I wanted more of like a sisterhood and a like community to like fall back on and like have, essentially have like, a home away from home, like have a
Yeah.
family-based community. And so that really helped when I was away because I was able to like talk with them and like visit them sometimes back at main campus. So that was really important. And then also when folks outside of Duke who I had like gone to march with and things of that nature, like just checking in with them here and there. That's definitely tapping into like your community. If your community is not there, tapping into your community elsewhere, like especially since we have home, like it's very accessible. The second thing I would say was protecting my peace. Like there were times where like me and my professor, I could have gone off on my professor, and I decided not to. I was just like, it's not even worth my time. Or even like when like folks would like want me to like go do something with them that I was not interested in. I just feel like, you know what? I'll just like use this time to like, do something else. Like I'll save myself. So yeah, definitely protecting your peace, especially in this political climate. That's two. Three is also once again finding allies like, because they and don't always look for allies, like I said, in the up and down sense for horizontally. So like I was like talking with like different staff, like I was talking with like the kitchen staff, I was talking with some of the folks
Hmm.
in the office over like the residential life, and they were like, really helpful and like who I could like just talk to and like have like some sort of sense of like community in times like when I really needed it. That's three, and then four, creative outlets are very important because I had energy that I like needed to go somewhere, and so like I would use that time because I did have a lot more time at the marina as opposed to do to like write poems and to like go hiking, to go kayaking and stuff. So I like took advantage of that. So yeah, those really helped me last semester.
I'm really glad you had that. I have some very similar experiences to you in that aspect when I was there because I had to find my things to keep me doing. And like the people there were good people, you know what I mean? But it's just
Mm-hmm.
not. I'd never been around the Duke crowd and any of that stuff, and it was very different. I mean, people were very like, I'm here. This is the thing I do. Very, very. I was like, okay, this is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's awesome that you got a chance to speak with that because like I said, you talk about the kitchen staff. Like even at my small PWI I went to, and at Eckerd and St. Most of the kitchen staff and the groundskeepers were black people, and I used to always talk to them and just chat about them, even talk about the basketball game or whatever's going on. They'd be like, "Oh, we see another black man in here. You're going to school here. We're happy. We're supporting you." And, that kind of stuff just goes a long way. And you never, you never realize how much it matters until you're actually in that situation. You don't have a lot of people around that look like you, think like you, and do the things you do. And it's like that's okay. People have different things. Different things work for different people. But sometimes you just need another person around that's
Yeah.
just like you to make you feel normal.
Yes, exactly. Emphasis on
Okay, so for our last question, and you've been a great guest. This has been one of my favorite interviews. There's so many different things that you've brought to the table that, you don't typically get. Not many people have organized a march at 17 years old, all this kind of cool stuff. Um, Give me your three favorite things that you've seen throughout all your time doing this conservation work. Like what's some awesome things? It could be animals, it could be
Oh my God,
places you've
yes.
been. Give me some things that you're really like, that was awesome. I'm in this for this reason, and what I'm doing is the right thing.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I feel like they're all gonna come from the march. I'm not gonna
Okay. That's good. That's
one
perfect.
for my life. Okay, so first I'm gonna go start with the animals, like and like just the ecology of it. I, one of my, I guess another takeaway was like I got to see my home, the Gulf Coast, the Texas Louisiana coast, from like perspective that people who have lived their whole lives can never say. And so when we were walking, like yes, there was the people, but I also got to see like the land, like just the mighty Mississippi River, the swamps, the bayous. At one point, we literally walked through Rockefeller alligator refuge, and we had to like we had a
Wow.
gator like come across, and we had to like we had snakes around us. Like it was just like I just felt like so connected to this land. I felt like I was so connected to, but it just really added a deep admiration and like, gratitude for like to be from this space, especially and thinking about how people, look down on this topic. It's like we have like so much to offer. Like it really like changed my perspective, made me like go hard for it even more. And then the second thing I would say, yeah, are the people, just meeting all these different people because we have folks come from like at the end of March we have people from all over the country join us. And I believe we have like about like 100 people and just like hearing all like how all of our stories, like they may have been different, but they were like different connections. And like just like, understanding that this is an interconnected struggle for real. And like, none of us are free until we're all free. And so that like really brought that to light for me and like really like solidified that for me. And then third, last, oh my gosh, yeah, I gotta just go back. Like, there's so much power in like having agency, and so like I've like used like my sense of self, and like been able to like deploy that value in like the younger folks in like my community, like my family and like my friends and things of that nature. And like people look to me, so I'm like so glad that I get to be kind of like beacon of light and like example for other people to know like that you can like really truly do whatever you put your mind to, and there are people out there that will support your cause. Like you, like one of the things I like constantly tell other people is like you're the first person to tell yourself no, so don't do it. Like you gotta you take that leap of faith. So yeah,
I think that was a perfect way to end it. Thank you so much for that. That's a great quote. I'm definitely gonna make sure that's bolded when your episode comes out. But yeah, everyone, this was Chanté Davis. Thank you so much for being here. I'm clapping for you here. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your story. This was awesome. Thank you everyone for tuning in to Black Nerds Matter. You can support the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure to follow on Spotify, and by purchasing our shirts, which will be linked in the episodes below this. Also, sponsoring any episodes you want to. Black and Marine Science has sponsored a few of our episodes, and we appreciate them for their donations. So yeah, everyone, thank you so much for being here, and Black Nerds Matter out.